I spent Christmas of 2018 in Austria, visiting my girlfriend's family in a small mountain village near Salzburg. It was my first time outside the US, and I wanted to make a good impression, show them I wasn't just some clueless tourist. They had all these traditions I didn't understand: wooden ornaments, real candles on the tree, carols that sounded almost like hymns. And then someone mentioned Krampusnacht. I laughed, said it sounded like a leftover from Halloween. They didn't laugh back. Her father just looked at me for a moment, then quietly said, "Here, we still believe he walks." I thought he was joking until that night. We'd gone into the village for the festival. Snow was falling in slow, heavy flakes, the kind that swallow sound. I heard bells before I saw anything, low, uneven, like something dragging metal down the street. Chains clinking against cobblestone. It wasn't music. It was rhythm, deliberate, slow, getting closer. When they finally came into view, I realized these weren't the kind of costumes you wear for fun. They looked ancient. Hand-carved masks with cracked horns, fur matted with snow, teeth that gleamed wet in the firelight. The air smelled like smoke and cold metal. People around me were laughing nervously, holding candles, pretending it was all part of the show. But something about it felt wrong. Every instinct in me wanted to step back, to leave. One of them stopped right in front of me, tall, shoulders covered in dark fur, bells hanging from the waist. He tilted his head, slow, deliberate, and for a second, the world went dead quiet. My stomach dropped. My skin crawled like something had just brushed against it. He dragged the chain once across the snow, the sound sharp and metallic, and then reached out. His hand, or glove, I couldn't tell, touched the front of my jacket, right over my heart. The metal burned through the fabric. It bit into me. I flinched back, but he was already gone, walking down the street, the bells fading behind him. Everyone laughed again. I tried to, but my hands were shaking, and my heart was pounding so hard it made me dizzy. When I looked down, there was a black mark on my jacket, a small, perfect circle, burned into the fabric. Back at the house, I tried scrubbing it off, but it didn't smear. It wasn't soot. It was scorched. When her father saw it, his face went pale. He didn't say anything at first, just stared. Then he said, barely above a whisper, "That means he recognized you." I asked him what that was supposed to mean. He looked at me like I was a child who didn't understand the rules of something older than language. "You shouldn't have laughed," he said. I didn't sleep that night. Every time the wind hit the shutters, I thought I heard bells. Every time I blinked, I saw that mask, the empty eyes, the wet teeth. The next morning, my jacket still smelled faintly like smoke, and on the flight home, when I closed my eyes, I could still hear that chain dragging through the snow. Slow, steady, getting closer. Last December, I rented a cottage up north for the holidays. I didn't want company that year, just peace and quiet. A few days to reset before going back to work. The listing said it was built in the 1800s, tucked into the woods, a few miles from the nearest town. When I got there, I realized tucked into the woods really meant buried in them. The driveway disappeared under snow after the first night. The trees pressed right up to the windows. The woman who owned the place was polite, but strange. She handed me the keys and told me to keep the fire going, especially on the long night. I thought she meant it practically. It was December in the middle of nowhere. But when she said the long night, she said it like it had a capital letter. At first all was fine. The silence took getting used to, but I liked it. I read, cooked, took long walks on the trails. The only thing that bothered me was how dark it got. By 4:30, it looked like midnight, and the woods seemed to swallow the house whole. When I unpacked my last bag, I noticed a small wooden box on top of the wardrobe. It looked like it had been there a long time. Inside were old decorations, straw stars, dried berries, some evergreen branches tied with string, and one thick candle wrapped in twine. There was a little card with careful handwriting, "For Yule, light only on the longest night." I laughed to myself, thinking it was some quaint local tradition. Still, when the solstice came around, I lit the candle. The wax was dark red, almost brown, and it smelled faintly like pine and smoke. I set it on the coffee table, poured a drink, and read by the fire. After a while, the room started feeling strange, not colder, but heavier, the kind of stillness that presses on your skin. The fire popped once and then went quiet. Even the wind outside seemed to stop. I remember realizing I couldn't hear anything. Not the clock ticking, not the trees creaking, just silence. Then I heard a sound in the hallway. It was so faint at first that I thought I imagined it, just the old wood settling, but it came again. Slow, deliberate creaks like footsteps, one at a time. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. I told myself it was the house, or maybe an animal on the porch. I stood, tried to listen, but it stopped as soon as I moved. The candle flame was leaning sideways, pointing straight toward the hallway door. I stared at it for a good 30 seconds, not breathing, waiting for something else to happen. Then the footsteps started again, closer this time. I could feel sweat sliding down my back, even though the room was freezing. I wanted to believe it was nothing, but every sound felt human. A step, a pause, another step. I walked to the fireplace poker and grabbed it, telling myself I was being ridiculous. The air smelled like wet pine. When I turned back, the candle's flame was almost horizontal, flickering toward the door, as if something was moving just on the other side. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the poker. I walked over, trying to convince myself to open the door, but I couldn't. I couldn't even touch the handle. I went back and threw the blanket over the candle instead. The room went completely black. I stood there in the dark, holding my breath, listening. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, I thought I heard breathing, slow and steady, right near the doorframe. I didn't move. I don't know how long I stayed there, maybe minutes, maybe hours, before I finally turned on the lamp. The candle was out, the blanket was untouched, but a thin trail of soot ran up the wall behind it, like smoke had been pulled toward the ceiling. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I started to drift off, I thought I heard the floor creak again. When morning came, I went outside to clear my head. The snow was fresh, except for one set of footprints, bare feet, leading away from the porch and vanishing into the woods. I packed my things and left that afternoon. I didn't even leave a note. A week later, the owner called to ask why I'd left so suddenly. She said the cleaners found the candle half burned. I told her I hadn't touched it after that night. There was a long pause on the phone before she said quietly, "Then someone else must have." Last Christmas, I was studying abroad in Italy. Most of the other students flew home for the holidays, but I couldn't afford the ticket. So I rented a small apartment just outside Bologna. Old place, high ceilings, stone floors that never really got warm, no matter how high I turned the heater. My landlady lived downstairs. She was in her 70s, always dressed in black, the kind of woman who seemed to know everything that happened in the building without ever leaving her kitchen window. She was kind, but she had rules. One of them was about the first week of January. She told me never to open the door on the night of January 5th. I thought it was superstition, some old story about La Befana, the Christmas witch. I'd seen her figurines in shop windows. A crooked old woman on a broomstick who brings gifts to children on Epiphany Eve. I told her I wasn't planning to open the door anyway, and she said, "Promise me." I laughed and said I did. That week was quiet. The whole neighborhood emptied out. Shops closed early. The streets went dark. I spent most nights writing or watching old movies with a blanket and a bottle of wine. The night of the 5th, it started raining. The sound echoed down the stairwell outside my door. Around midnight, I heard something, a soft shuffle, like someone sweeping the hallway. At first, I thought it was my imagination. Then it came again. Swish, swish, pause, swish. It moved slowly up the stairs, one step at a time. I got up and went to the peephole, half annoyed, half curious. The hallway light was still on, but I didn't see anyone. The sound stopped right outside my door. Then came 3 soft knocks. Not hard, not demanding, just slow and deliberate. 1, 2, 3. I waited, thinking maybe my landlady needed something, but she always called first. My hand was sweating against the door handle, and I didn't even know why. I thought about opening it, just for a second. But something in my chest told me not to. The air smelled faintly like smoke. Not cigarette smoke, but burned herbs, sharp and dry. The knocks came again, this time a little lighter, almost patient. Then a sound I'll never forget. The faint, rhythmic bristles of a broom sweeping against the floor, moving back and forth right outside. My skin crawled, every hair on my body stood up, and then silence. No footsteps walking away. No creak of the stairs. Just silence. I stood there for a long time, staring at the handle, waiting for something else to happen. It didn't. After a while, I convinced myself it was nothing and went back to bed. When I woke up the next morning, the air smelled like cold ash. I stepped into the hall, and there was a small pile of soot in front of my door. Right in the center sat a single piece of coal wrapped with red thread. I went downstairs to ask my landlady if she'd seen anyone. She was already waiting at the door, her expression tight. Before I could even speak, she said, "You didn't open it, did you?" I told her no. She nodded once and said, "Good." Someone always does. Once. She wouldn't explain what she meant. That afternoon, I left the coal on the kitchen counter. When I came back from the store, it was gone. I thought maybe I'd moved it without realizing, but I checked everywhere, even the trash. Nothing. I asked my landlady if she'd taken it, and she just said, "If it's gone, leave it that way." That's all for tonight. Funny how the holidays make people feel safe. Like nothing bad can happen when the lights are up and the music's playing. But every year, someone learns that's not true. Thanks for watching No Sleep Tonight. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow and keep these horrors coming. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, sleep well.